Okay, hi everyone. In today's weekly lecture, I'm going to review some of the basics of what you should be working on in Moodle at this time. Also, I will discuss some of the upcoming assignments, and I want to go over how to do a proper works cited entry for one of these articles from this textbook. Also, talking to you a bit about how to do the in-text citations for the articles in this textbook, because it's a little difficult since this is an edited book, or anthology is what it would be called, and it has many articles by different authors. It has a very distinct way of being cited. So we're going to talk a bit about that and how to get the most out of your discussion forum as you move forward. And be sure that you're participating in the discussion forum, if not daily, every other day. So far, I've had about 2-3 students participate, and only one student has really followed instructions. So it's very important that you go in and read those instructions. Instructions are key. If you send me an email with questions saying you're just confused, and I'm going to say, okay, well, what did the instructions say? And I don't hear back from you, my assumption is you're not reading my instructions, because they're laid out step by step by step. So let's go over the instructions to make sure that everyone is clear. Again, I like to go to student view. My view is a little different as an instructor. I'm going to go to student view so that I am seeing it exactly the way you are seeing it. And that way, if I see any problems, I can also go in and correct it. So again, just navigation, basic navigation. You see the screen in the the browser behind me, and I'm looking at it right now. You have the news forum. That's where these videos are posted, daily instructions and updates, and you see everything I've posted since the beginning of the semester is here. Unfortunately, it is in alphabetical order. I'm going to see if I can switch it. Uh, okay, yeah, so it sorted it from the most recent to the oldest now, and you can see I have post almost daily at the beginning of the semester, and then now it's going toward every few days, and eventually it'll go toward just once a week. And the reason for that is I expect that by this point in the semester, most of you understand how to navigate your way through the course, and understand exactly how we are functioning in this course. Uh, Online courses, there's two real dangers with online courses. The first danger is that students feel a lot of isolation because there isn't the forced every other day meeting, or every 2-day meeting, or 1 day, 3 hours a week meeting. Since that doesn't exist, students are really learning on their own, which for an independent learner is actually kind of exciting. That's the sort of thing I would have enjoyed when I was younger. It's one of the reasons I teach online, is because I'm a bit of an independent learner. But many students learn through discussion, through interaction with others, and this is why we have the discussion forums. So you have in your class, let's go back to here, you have the Q&A forum. And some of you have been emailing me questions, and that's fine, but the Q&A form is really what that's designed for. So if you have a question, you can post it there. Your peers can see if somebody's already asked that question, or pointed out an issue they're having with a link, and that way you're not being redundant, and you can go there and check that, or post, or contribute to those conversations. Now that's an ungraded form. That's just a place for you all to ask questions. But now in this Unit 1, this first unit that you should be working on, you have another forum called the World of the Image. And I discussed this in the previous video. And you can see here some students have already participated. This is what it should look like when you open it. And you can see your replies, or who's replied to each post, and some of these statements. So one of the things I said here is, after completing the reading assignments posted on the reading calendar, begin discussing ideas from the readings here. This is a way to generate ideas for the proposal. It is important that you participate in these forums. They act as class meetings and should be treated with the same attitude as attending a face-to-face class regularly. F to F stands for face-to-face. So what that means, if you were unclear on it from the very beginning, because we've already had one graded discussion forum, is that those 5 posts that you're supposed to have on this forum basically count in the same way as coming to class 3 hours a week, which is what you would do in a face-to-face class. You would have to come meet with me if we were in a face-to-face class and your peers for 3 hours a week. So if you think of this discussion forum as those 3 hours, as a chance to discuss the readings that are in both of these textbooks, to discuss how to cite, which you would use this textbook, how to cite, and to really delve into the development of this prospectus, then this becomes a very beneficial assignment and you are receiving points for it. A lot of students treat discussion forums as something that they can just go in and do the day before it's due and get all the credit, and gosh, I made my post so I must get all my credit. Well, that's not the case with these, and I know I've emphasized this in previous lecture videos, but I feel like I need to emphasize this one more time, because as you can see here, we only have had 4 participants out of the whole class, and there's about 18 students signed up, 4 or 5 participants, and their comments right now, I believe Case has the closest to what I've been talking about, what I want in your comments. So if you're having trouble starting your discussion forum, what I really want you to do, this is great what Case has done here, but what I really want you to do is go to my post. What is an image? What is vision? This is my post right here. And then you see I do have a structure here, and I've gone over this in a previous video, but I have some very specific questions. What problems do you have with some of these concepts in your readings? What is left out? So what don't they actually discuss that you'd like to find out more about? And that's a great way to start figuring out how to do the research for this essay. And what do you find as fertile ground for further inquiry? Again, I'm trying to direct you to thinking about how you're going to research these topics. That's why you did the library unit before this. The forum is a way to start developing research ideas. So you need to reply to this. You just click reply. When you type your reply in the box, it's as simple as can be, and then you click post to forum, and it should pop up like this, and you'll get something like what Destiny has here and what I have here. This is a model reply, just showing you how it goes, and then you can reply to people's replies. But I want all your discussions from here on out to be under this post. What is an image? What is a vision? And think about those things, because that's key to the first chapter of this book, which you should have been reading. Chapter 1, the active scene. Okay? So in order to cite one of these articles from this textbook, from the world of the image, our reader, you would use your writing resource, a writer's resource textbook. You would find the MLA section, which depending on your edition, this is the older 4th edition, but you may have the 5th edition, the page numbers are going to be different, and that's why I'm not giving you the page numbers. Let me increase the video of me so you can actually see what I'm looking at here. So this is basically what the MLA section looks like in the textbook. You're going to look in here and find whether the article is in a book. You're going to find how to cite it. So you're going to scan through, and then you have the first section here is in-text citations, which is what these require, these posts require. So you need to find your in-text citation, and what you're going to look for is this, something that looks like this brown section here. It's a mini, basically a miniature table of contents that's specific to in-text citation of these sources. And you're going to look for author named in sentence, author named in parentheses, that sort of thing, which is actually in the very beginning. So if you look at number 1 here, and you want to name the author in the sentence, which would be in an introductory clause if you watched that plagiarism video I assigned, you could do something like this. So I want to go in, I'm going to shrink this back down. Now I want to go in, now I want to reply to this post. I click reply, and then I'm going to say, since this is a model reply, I'm replying to a model reply. This is a model of how to cite a source in text in both a paper and a discussion forum. For example, students should be reading the chapter, and you may not see everything I'm typing here. The video of me may be blocking some of this. That's perfectly okay. I will set it up so you can see all of it. For example, students should be reading chapter 1, the act of seeing. Now, first lesson about titles in MLA. Since this is a chapter that's part of a larger book, the chapter is placed in quotes. So each of these articles that are in this book, in this chapter, would also be placed in quotes, their titles, whereas the title of the textbook is italicized. Anytime you have a larger text, you take that gets italicized, and anytime you're citing a piece of a text, that gets placed in quotes. You know, something that has a subtitle, as in this case. For example, students should be reading chapter 1, the act of seeing. This chapter includes individual essays. These essays are the jumping off points for serious inquiry toward developing the prospectus / essay 1. One of my favorites from this selection was Mark Pendergast, When Babies Become Aware of Themselves. Again, since this is a title embedded in a larger work, the title receives quotes. Now I have to go in and correct my spelling because this is an English assignment. So we want, as much as possible, remember from the email etiquette, all digital communications follow essentially the same rules as essays and cover letters. We want them to be as close as possible to grammatically correct. A few typos is not the end of the world. You know, I make these constantly. I'm not a grammarian by any means. But we also don't want to go in and type the way we speak necessarily, because, or at least the way we speak to our friends, because that's not going to show the reader, which is primarily me, that we're taking the class seriously. So one of my favorites from this selection was Mark Pendergast, When Babies Become Aware of Themselves. And then I can turn to that section in the book, and I can find a quote from here that I think is really amazing. So, you know, one idea that Pendergast presents is the concept of self-awareness. He discusses how self-awareness does not require a mirror. Now in this instance, I did not put Pendergrass's last name in the parenthetical because it appears in the previous sentence here. I know he still refers to Pendergrass. So in this instance, I can just put the page number in the parenthetical. Notice that this is an in-text citation. Notice that the period follows the closed parentheses. All I have is the page number here. And because I haven't started talking about another author or editor, I don't have to use his name. But I do have to cite, because I'm paraphrasing this section on page 24 where he says, of course mirrors are not necessary for self-awareness. I've paraphrased what he said. The idea is not original to me. So if I don't give the page number, I am plagiarizing. I am stealing. And that is worthy of a big fat 0. We don't want those zeros. We don't want that trouble. So we need to start practicing doing this. That's another reason why the discussion forum exists. It's a safe place to practice these things toward your essay, because if you don't cite in your essay, it's a 0 automatically. I'm not going to be lenient or lax on that at all this semester. It's important that you get this idea down. So you use this book to help you do that and to make sure you do it correctly. I cannot overemphasize this. So let's say at this point I decided to go to the beginning of the chapter, chapter 1. This introductory information is not written by anybody specifically. It doesn't have an author assigned. So then we can assume that Trudy Smoke and Alan Robbins, who are the editors of this text, wrote that. And then we would have to quote them. So let me show you what happens when you want to quote, as it says here on 289 in the 4th edition of a writer's resource, how you want to quote a article when you have the author's name in the body of the sentence. So according to Smoke, is it Smoke or Snoke? Smoke and Robbins, how we see and make sense of images depends to some extent on how we see anything at all. And this is a complex matter. So in this instance, notice I had to use the author's names, the editor's names, because it's new editors. I used it in what's called an introductory clause, a signal phrase that ends on a comma, and then I have a direct quote. So here, this is a citation that's a paraphrase. The author's name appears previously, so I don't have to put it in the parenthetical. Here, these are new authors, or in your case, the editors, and a direct quote, which is, oh man, it messed that up. So let's see if we can fix this. You got to be careful messing around with those highlights. So you have the editors here mentioned in the introductory clause, and then we have our signal phrase, and then we have the punctuation that shows us this is a quote, and then we have the parenthetical, and notice the period comes after the closed parentheses, not before. Not before. People make that mistake constantly because they're not paying attention. So now I have these two ideas from two different sources. I have to show my reader how they connect. I haven't really done that yet. So let me reread. One of my favorites from the selection was Mark Pendergrass, When Babies Become Aware of Themselves. One idea that Pendergrass presents is the concept of self-awareness. He discusses, let's put lowercase, self-awareness. He discusses how self-awareness does not require a mirror. According to Smoke and Robbins, how we see and make sense of images depends to some extent on how we see anything at all, and this is a complex matter. But blind people who don't see anything still possess the quality of self-awareness. Now notice I've gone back to Pendergrass here, and I'm paraphrasing another idea of his, but his name doesn't appear anywhere in the sentence, so now I have to put his name in the parenthetical right here. Notice there's no comma between his name and the page number. Very, very important. We don't do this. But because his name does not appear anywhere in this paraphrase, I have to put it in the parenthetical because that idea is not original to me. That idea appears on page 24 of the readings. So this example serves to prove or at least illustrate that seeing is more complex than sight. What I mean by this is that it is possible to see or experience the world without being able to actually see. A mirror is not necessary for self-awareness, but I'm not sure what is. I'd like to further explore that idea through research. So you see here, this is a model post for what you would want to put in a response to my questions. You've got citations, in-text citations that show me that you've read this. Show me that you have read this. I don't want to hear I'm confused. I don't want to hear I have no idea what's going on, because what that tells me is you're not reading the instructions and you're not watching these videos. If you are watching these videos and you've read the textbook and read the step-by-step instructions, you do know what's going on and you can do this. It's not that difficult. It's just a matter of putting together these two books. Use this book to help you do an in-text citation. And I showed you 3 different ways of citing a paraphrase, citing if the author doesn't appear in the sentence, citing if the author is the only author you've been talking about for 3 or 4 sentences, citing if you're using the editor. And those are all in text. Now let's go on to the works cited entries that you have to enter to prove this. So since Pendergrass is part of Smoke and Robbins' book, we can put Smoke and Robbins as the first citation. Notice they're the editors, so we put EDS, and then we put the title of the text in italics, the world of the image, period. Then what we would put is the publisher. In this case, the publisher is Pearson. So we'd put Pearson, and we'd put the city. Let's make sure that's correct, because I sometimes invert those things. To check, to make sure I'm correct, I go to page, to the section that looks like this in my writer's resource. This is an embedded table of contents in the MLA section. And I look for a work in an anthology or textbook or chapter in an edited book, which in the 4th edition is on page 301. It might be on a different page in your edition if you have the 5th edition. And actually what this shows me is the press's name comes second. So first I need the city of publication, which I was concerned that that would come first, which in this case I go to the textbook and I find the first city present, and it says New York, which most things are published in New York these days. I want to make sure that it's not italicized. The only thing italicized is the title of this book. New York, Pearson, comma. Then I need the date of publication. (2007). Gosh. And then we're going to use the word print because it's in print. Now we don't put page numbers yet because we haven't cited something specifically yet. So now we have to do the specific citations. Since this citation appears in my, let's say, work cited, if this was a paper, now I can cite a simpler way. There's a way to cite simpler if I'm citing 2 or more works from an anthology. And that appears as number 9 on page 301 of the 4th edition. Whatever page it is in the 5th edition, you'll have to find 2 or more items from one anthology. So the first thing I'm going to do is put the author's names. In this case, Smoke, Trudy, and Rubens. I'll put it underneath here. And I'll put in italics, chapter 1. And then I'll put Smoke. And then I'll put the page numbers for chapter 1. 1 through 3. Period. And then I have to go up here and put Pendergrass because he comes alphabetically before Smoke. And I know it's Mark. He's not the editor. I put the title of the text. In this case, When Babies Become Aware of Themselves, period. And then I would put Smoke again because it appears in the anthology of Smoke and Robbins anthology. And then I would put the page numbers. And that's it. And if I had anything else that appeared in this textbook in here, that's how I would cite it. Now, all that required was a little bit of gumption. Going into your textbook, reading a writer's resource, and matching it up to this. That is what you need to do. You are college students. That is your job, is to use this book to help you cite this book. And you will use this book to also help you cite articles and that sort of thing that you come across as you are writing this essay and working in this discussion forum. So you see here you have a model discussion forum. I'm going to post it, so it's going to be there embedded as a reply to my previous post in this discussion forum thread. So you can go and look at this anytime you want as you're working on your own as a model. That simple. It's that's all there is to it. Now it does require a little time, but if you recall, what I said is this is like 3 hours a week of meetings. So in class, you would take time to listen to me lecture, you would take time to listen to other students talk, you would have to do some in-class activities that are very similar to this. So this is to teach you how to write these sections of the paper. Okay, and this is a good, safe way, low stakes way to practice. But just because it's low stakes doesn't mean it's unimportant. I can guarantee you that very few of you will be able to write a decent essay without participating in these discussion forums. Things will not be clear to you unless you are working in here and showing me as your teacher that you are reading and engaged daily in the work of this class. Remember early on I said that a class, a typical face-to-face class, requires 3 hours of course meeting time, and then for each of those hours anywhere from 2 to 3 hours of homework a week. So you're looking at 6 hours. Some faculty even consider you should be spending about 9 hours per class or 10 hours per class a week. So this is the reason a full-time college load for an undergraduate is 4 classes. If you think about 4 classes, that's 12 meeting hours plus another 6 hours per class, another 24 hours basically per class. So 12 plus 24 is 36. That's about a full-time job right there, about 40 hours a week of schoolwork for 4 classes. If you are not committing 40 hours a week to your schoolwork, it's very difficult to get an A in those classes. If you've gotten an A in the past, in some ways you've been kind of cheated time-wise because you haven't been expected to do all the work or haven't been given all the work that you should be getting in order to be a successful college student, to really gain something from your studies. So this is the sort of the post that you see behind the video here. I have to keep reminding myself my video is up there. But this post that I've put here, this is the sort of post that I want to see. This is the quality of posts that I want to see. And then your responses to these posts need to be of the same quality, digging into the article some more. And all of this is eventually leading to developing this prospectus. So let's look at that now. I believe I went over this in previous papers or previous videos, but I want to go over it again with you. So your prospectus is Essay 1. Your prospectus is Essay 1. They're the one and the same. But there's a bit of developing I want you to do before submitting it. So right now you should be working in the discussion forum as we have here. Now we have the developing the prospectus, and I have a lecture video on in-text citations, again how to do that, and here's the prompts linked for the essay. It's in PDF format, so it should open on everything, including your phones, although I don't recommend that. And you can look at the Essay 2 prompt. Use the following questions to inform your reading and research. What is beauty? How does a society, that should be does, sorry about the typo, see, even I make typos. How does a society's views on beauty, or how do a society's, actually that is correct because views is plural. So does and do, sometimes those concepts confuse even me. How do a society's views on beauty change over time? Who determines what is beautiful and how? What sort of power dynamics are involved in our concepts of beauty? What about male beauty and female beauty? Are they similarly treated? Is there a reasonable difference? How is beauty taught us from an early age? This paper requires 5 sources that must be turned in with your essay. 3 secondary scholarly sources, at least one must come from an academic journal, and 2 primary sources, interviews, for example, or letters, or creative work. Format, all essays should be 4 to 5 typed pages, approximately 1,000 words. The essay must be in 12-point Times New Roman. You can read all this. I'm not going to read it to you. But the key here is that you're going to write an essay about beauty. Now, when you get ready to read this book, chapter 2 deals with mirroring ourselves and deals with the notions of beauty, health, body decoration, and identity. So you're going to have some sources already in here that can count as secondary scholarly sources. So you could literally take 2 of the articles from here and use them, but you still will have to use an academic journal for one of them. And then the primary sources can be letters, interviews, they can be going out and talking to people, doing an informal poll or survey on what people think is beauty. But that's the key question, is what is beauty? And so all these things are going to really, these other questions are supplemental to that. Now for the third essay, you will consider how images transform and begin to take on new meanings. You will need to select a single image and explore its evolution from object to symbol and possibly to icon. Now what this means is, if you don't understand that, is that objects typically, objects can move from being a simple object in space to being a symbol, and then eventually in some instances they become iconic. They become part of what we call the zeitgeist, or the psychology of humanity. And a good example of that is the cross. That's something that almost everybody interacts with. Now the cross is simply 2 lines that intersect. That's it. That's all the cross is. But what it's become is a symbol of a number of things, and that symbol, either you see it as a plus sign or the letter T, or it was a torture device, and in the ancient world, Romans used it to torture rebels. Uh, Now it's gone. It used to symbolize all that. Now it symbolizes salvation and forgiveness from a Christian perspective. And then it's become iconic, essentially. If you see a cross or a cross shape in Western civilization, most of the ideas that come to mind are related to Christianity. So it's become iconic. And you have other things like, there's this outline image of Andre the Giant. I mentioned that in there. There's pop culture images. There's one of my favorites is the Zen circle or the Star of David. Those things. I don't want you to write on those things because they're extremely common. I want you to pick something that's a little more challenging. So you're going to need 3 scholarly sources again for this, and 2 primary sources. Same sort of rules. Then you have the 4th essay prompt. For the final essay, you will think about the application of visual literacy and understanding how images are manipulated to communicate specific ideas. Consider a particular current event or conflict in which images are playing a major role in communicating complex ideas, often simplifying complex ideas in ways a soundbite cannot. Elections use images. Political parties use the donkey for the Democrats or the elephant for the Republicans. Terrorists use images. Militaries use images. Corporations, Google, McDonald's, they all use images. How are they using this? People are hired who use images to manipulate different publics. This is the process I want you to analyze. So really thinking about how images manipulate us. Again, this is going off chapter 4 and chapter 5 of the reader. So some of your sources can come from that, but 3 have to come from academic journals for that one. It is one of your larger papers, but it is worth a lot more. It's worth almost double what your earlier papers are. So now that you know these 3 prompts, now you have to develop a prospectus. And the goal of developing the prospectus is to start thinking about and showing your process for developing this very complex essay. So in order to do that, I have provided a prospectus development sheet for you, which we are now looking at. That's what I've opened behind the video here. And it has very specific instructions. Read the instructions before you ask any questions. Be sure you read the instructions. And the first thing is, what is your topic? Why is this topic specifically interesting to you? What is something that few people know about your topic? How is your topic specifically relevant today? What is the significance of this topic, and to whom is it significant, and why is it significant? So thinking about those things based on your reading in chapter 1 and also on your reading of the prompts. I've given you some clues as to why it's significant. I mean, if you think about these concepts of beauty, how we use images to get people to side with us or support us, or how an image can become a symbol and thus become imbued with all these meanings. When you start thinking about those things, it's pretty overwhelming when you realize how much images play a role in our culture. So you're going to identify 3 or more perspectives on your topic. For the following questions, answer for each perspective. You're going to start looking for potential outside sources, thinking about who you can interview or what creative works you can look at, including poetry and plays and movies and television shows that might deal with this. You might find an interesting documentary that deals with image and visualization, or symbols, or advertising. There's a lot out there to look at. Identify 3 potential or actual changes in your topic. So how has this changed over time? Is there an element of controversy in this topic? Of course there is, because people want to argue that images don't manipulate them, but they, historically they do. And then the final essay is a more comprehensive argument about your topic. You saw that in the prompt. Overall, what is your purpose for addressing this argument? Remember the quote on page 174 from Purdue Al. If you haven't read it, you can find it. The general purpose of an argumentative research paper is not to inform the reader what others have to say about a topic, but to draw on what others have to say about a topic in order to thoughtfully offer a new perspective on the issue at hand. And then Costello says in Things That Make Writing Teachers Cringe, I believe, your job as a writer is to add something new and interesting to the topic and to persuade your readers to either seriously contemplate your position or accept and take action based on your position. So do this worksheet. I may ask you to submit it with the essay that is due on March 1st. That's not that far away. That's only 10 days away. That's less than 2 weeks. You should already be working on this. You may have to submit this, even though there's not a separate Dropbox for it as of right now. I may make it part of your essay grade. It's that important as a method to develop this essay. Now, once you have done that, you will take that form, and if I ask you to submit it, you will attach it to the essay document. Your first essay is going to be about 1,000 words. It's going to use specific citations, and it's literally going to be a plan. So if you remember, one of your early readings came out of the CRG, and it was on developing the prospectus. I'm not going to read it back to you. You already should have read it. It's very, very important that you do. On page 213. And it gives you some pointers on how to write a prospectus. But I want a prospectus in essay format that answers some of those questions. And some of the key things here is that this is a research plan for all 4 of the major essays written during the semester. I want to see that you have narrowed the topic and suggest the general focus. So for each prompt that I've given you, you need to suggest to me what your focus is going to be, how you're going to focus. So as you're moving from beauty to symbol to how we're manipulated by image, you need to think about how all 3 of those things are connected. So in some ways you can talk about how beauty can even become a symbol, and what is a symbol of beauty in our culture. And I've provided some videos for those for you for later. Writing the prospectus also makes students aware of how each of the 4 essays will relate to one another. And then there's why do I have to write a prospectus? How do I start my prospectus? It goes over that. How do I complete my prospectus? Your first paragraph will address your topic. Your second paragraph will specifically address your ideas for the first essay, which is how you're organizing. Remember, this is essay 1, so how you're organizing your thoughts, the connections between all these things. Your third paragraph will specifically address your plans for essay 2, essay 3, essay 4, and then your final paragraph about your purpose. It's pretty straightforward. I don't think we can make it much more straightforward than it is here. So be sure that you are using this textbook as well as a guide. So that's how they all interconnect. Now, once you're done with this, and this talks about basic formatting of an essay and organization to make sure that it's in MLA format visually, you'll submit your essay 1 here. Don't worry about the calendar on the side of the page there. I told you about that. Don't worry about it. Come over here and submit. And you see I have a practice submission already in there. You can see the similarity to other works already submitted. I can see the date submitted, and it gets a specific ID. I will go in and comment on your papers. Now, when I am done commenting on your paper, you'll get a grade. So when you look at this, that link will also take you there, but I prefer that you go the other way. Let's go to the Moodle book again. When you go to this, you see that I have a final chapter here, viewing comments, and this is a document that talks about how you can view comments on Turnitin. Now this is for the early Turnitin assignments. I'm not going to go in and comment a lot on these essays in line-by-line ways unless I see that there's some glaring issues that are already covered in things like things that make the writing teachers cringe, your CRG that you should have already dealt with in 101. So if those issues that should have been dealt with in 101 reappear in this prospectus, I will comment on your paper and then expect that those issues not appear in the next essay. One of the things students often do is they don't look at the comments, they just look at the average, and they're like, yay, I got an 80, or oh, I got a 70, or oh, I got a 40, and then they're angry, but they don't look at why they got those grades. So you need to look at why. Remember all the reading I had you do at the beginning of this section on self-evaluation. Use this book to evaluate your work. I don't know how we can make it much clearer than that. You have rubrics in here with each essay. You have that document, things that make writing teachers cringe. You have lots and lots of information in here to help you write the best essay possible. It's just a matter of using the resources at hand, which a lot of students just don't use the resources at hand, and that's because they've been procrastinating. So that brings me to the next major topic I want to deal with. We should have already been participating in the discussion forum. There should be a post or reply, at least 2 or 3 from every single student in the class, that's showing me that you're reading the assignments, particularly the reader. When I get questions from students saying, I don't understand what's going on, what it's telling me is you're not following my instructions step by step and you're not reading. If you have a question, that's fine, but make sure the question is specific. But at this point, with 10 days away from when this paper is being due, needs to be turned in, I need to be seeing posts from students showing that they're really engaged in the class. What you're doing when you're not posting is basically telling me you're not engaged in the class, and I'm less likely to be helpful with you if you show up the day the essay's due. Send me an email the day the essay's due saying, I don't know what to do. I won't be able to help you then. It'll be too late in the game. So get engaged in the class. I know it's an online class. It's really easy to forget. Remember I said there's 2 issues, and one of the issues is forgetting that you have assignments, not being engaged daily in the course, that feeling of isolation that comes with it. And the other biggest issue is this feeling that you can put off to another day your assignments. It becomes not as important because you don't have to face me in person, so you don't have me going, why aren't you turning this in? You can just ignore the videos. And in doing so, what ends up happening is inevitably your grades start to go down, 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 and you end up with at most a D, but most likely an F. Remember also in 102, as in 101, if you don't turn in an essay, you automatically fail the course. You have to turn in every single essay correctly. So that means that you're following instructions, that you're working through the Moodle book step by step, you're doing these readings, you're watching these videos. When you don't do those things, it tells me that you're not engaged in the class, And again, it's less likely that any faculty member would be very helpful in that instance, because you have to help yourself first, and that's key. You're adults. Uh, so I know that came off kind of sharp, but it is a bit frustrating on this end when I'm not seeing anybody post, and then I get 10 emails the day something's due with "I don't understand what's going on." Get in there, start posting on the forums, start showing me that you're reading. Start showing each other that you're reading. Start developing this prospectus. You have 10 days. That's 10 days. 10 days only to get it done. It's been up for over a month. That's plenty of time. After this point, things are going to start really moving fast. Really moving fast, because we have March, we have April, and then we have like 2 weeks in May, and we're done. So things are going to really fly by. So please, please, I implore you, don't procrastinate. As always, I'm here to help. I can be more helpful when specific questions are being asked. So try to make your questions as specific as possible. I hope to hear from you soon, and I hope to see everybody on the discussion forum developing this essay and asking each other questions about this essay and the readings themselves. That is, don't tell me I understand everything I've read, because that doesn't tell me that you have read. My assumption will be that you have not read, and you will receive a 0 on the assignment. So there are very specific rules. Remember, I've sent them to you all through messages about how to work in the discussion forums. Follow the rules. Okay, which is really a lot of what college is. It's just following the rules, following the steps, and that's what I expect of you. On that note, I'm going to tie it up for this week. 10 days out from Essay 1 being due. Let's get it done and get it done well and finish strong on Essay 1 so we can really propel ourselves to doing